in the second part of the feasibility studies, preliminary design and EIA, how we can apply the EIA to any particular project. So in the today's lecture, we will mainly talk about the preliminary investigation. So for example, if you would like to build a road, a railway, or any type of a project, so what are the preliminary investigation surveys which is required for the successful project? And what are the different types of feasibility study? And what are the components in feasibility study which we should consider? Coming to the very first one, as I already mentioned in the previous session in the very first one, but if we would like to do the preliminary investigation survey, so you should consider three things because there are four participants in any type of a project. The one is donor, another one is the client, the third one is the consultant, and the very last one is the investor. So you need to think about the common benefit of all those four parties. If you are going to agree all of them through your preliminary survey, through your preliminary assumption, investigation, and survey, there is a huge possibility that there will be a huge connectivity among those four participants. So the very first point is that how much the proposal which you already build, which you already construct, which you already create, which is how much the same proposal is appropriate. So this is very important thing. Appropriate to whom? Appropriate to those four bodies, because if there is a saying that each and every month, every person would like to see his benefits or her benefits from any project, because the investor will never invest if he cannot get his return. Similarly, the client, similarly the construction partner, and similarly, of course, the donor as well. So you need to consider the common interest for each and everyone. The second part is if the client core purpose is business and he would like to provide the facility, so how much the same project, the same report which you already presented in the joint meeting, how much it means to him, how much the same project, the same proposal is acceptable to him. Acceptable in terms of, for example, if you would like to build a road or like railway network for 10 kilometer and you put there a lot of culverts and you are going to pass your alignment in such a mountains where there is a huge cutting and filling is required, and at the end the cost of overall project is not that much high. Of course, there will be very rare people who are interested to take interest in your project. So if you are a funding dependent person, funding dependent country, funded dependent client, funded dependent administration organization, then of course you need to have you need to put all the common benefits of all those four bodies. The third point is how much scope to the partner of the proposal is, how much he is interested to perceive in the same proposal. Is it clear? If you have any question, please let me know. Okay, so the next topic is very important. It is the subpart of the same topic. So if you would like to do, if you are an engineer and I give you a task to do assignment or write a report for a project or do the preliminary survey for any type of a project, to construct a building, to construct a port, to construct something for a shipping industry, to make something facility for a multimodal transportation. So all those points could be considered. So what are the important parameters which we should consider? The very first one is disk study or disk survey. So these are the four important indicators for starting of any project, for any to construct or to create your own feasibility about any project. So if you know all those 4 points, so like for example, number 1 is about topography, and then we have a drainage, contour, and existing roads, ponds, barriers, etc. So the very first one is mainly focusing on what? Is focusing that how much topography we have. And if we talk about the shape of topography, so for example, the ground is kind of a slopy ground. We have a huge curve. We have the level of the gradient. So all those topics could be covered in the topography survey, and we can also get all those information from the topography map. The second part is about drainage facility. Drainage means what? Drainage means if we would like to provide the facility for a rain of water or for a snow, of course, of any facility, so you should consider that you cannot provide always inward slope. Inward means where the all the waters collected within your infrastructure at your center point. Of course, you as an engineer, you have to understand that all your slope should be outward. So the water should move away from your facility. Inward slope was only possible in some of the snowing countries. It's like Russia, US, and Canada, where they are going to use a perforated tubes. Perforated tubes, you can search on it. So the second important part is about contours. Okay, in the desk study, contour is basically a 10 is the indication or give you information at every 10 meter about the gradient, about the slope that you should come up with what kind. For example, if you are going to build a road, so you need a straight alignment, you need a kind of a curve alignment. So all those information you can get in the contour map. And the fourth point is about existing roads, ponds, and barriers. So we should consider, because if your alignment is going to pass on such type of areas, then of course you should come up with something like culvert, like bridges. But the main point is that we are going to analyze that if there is any obstacle. So the second part of a disk study is geological characteristics. So geological characteristics are very important. You cannot ignore them. So in the geology, we basically consider something the ground table level. If the area is a waterlogged, how much chances of a flood we do have, and all those information we can collect from the rainfall data. So for example, if you are going to build a massive construction or a project, so you should consider at least 70 to 100 year of a rainfall chart to to predict and assume the chances of a flooding. And also you should consider if the area is a huge rainfall intensity, so there is a possibility that water will be in the very upstream, in the very, so maybe your constructed area is a waterlogged area. So you should consider that. And the next one is we are going to come up with a final decision. But keep in mind, what does it mean, desk study? Desk study means that you are sitting at your desk, at your chair, and you are doing all those things only from the maps, from the chart, and then from your desk. For example, if you are going to build a railway or like road, and then you just connect origin and destination through a rough chart on the basis of all those parameters. So the second part is very important, reconnaissance survey. So reconnaissance survey is again consists of two important and parallel indicator. The first one is about deviation or deviance. If we would like to see that how much area is a kind of a spiral area, straight slope. It maybe need a lot of cutting and filling. And so, for example, if we look into the road or like railway geometry, so in the road we see usually like road cross section alignment, what type of culvert or bridges we actually needed. Simple terms about deviation is we would like to see if the alignment is accordingly moving on the or like you can move your alignment accordingly on the decision you have taken in the desk survey. So to see all those decisions in a physical way, this is the purpose of a reconnaissance survey. This is basically to support your idea, your inputs, or like your decision which you have taken at a desk study or desk survey. The second part is about aerial and ground reconnaissance. Basically, the purpose of reconnaissance survey is to collect information. For example, where do we need aerial reconnaissance, or where we can get ground reconnaissance. So ground is basically, if for example, if I'm in the physical station, so I can see the city orientation, the alignment direction, and also I can see that how much people or we can facilitate through our alignment. This decision can be taken at the ground reconnaissance. So we need aerial reconnaissance to connect the two shortest points if the ground survey or reconnaissance survey is not possible, then we should switch to the aerial survey. So aerial survey is again possible through photogrammetric or like through cameras or through bird eyes, or we can also call it a pilot survey as well. Okay, so those two portions to collect most of the information and also to bake your information at the disk study could be covered in that specific part. So the next part of the reconnaissance survey is about alignment, and we come up with a final decision. Alignment means where we can pass, where we can like put. You should keep in mind that straight alignment is perfect, but always straight alignment is not possible. We need a lot of cutting and filling. So the final decision should always come in the impression to consider all those parameters. And then at this stage, we only create a final plan on the basis of those above information. So desk study is done. You have also done the reconnaissance survey to see what is exactly there on the ground. But actually reconnaissance survey is going to justify your desk study analysis. Now we have the third part, which we call preliminary survey. Preliminary survey is basically the part of a desk study along with the reconnaissance, only to see the information which you have collected or you have considered at the desk along with the field, how much they are valid. So if we are going to check the feasibility option, such as what is the bearing capacity, what is the transverse or like traverse survey to come up with your final decision. So traverse is basically to establish the control network, is basically a part of a geodesy where we are going to consider the geographical and decision contained decision in the same survey. It is basically involve the placing of a survey station along a line or path to travel and to observe the next point. Basically is a part of a alignment where we are going to connect the 2 points to connect the origin along with the destination. So this is a preliminary survey. The last part is about location survey. So this is the final part of your survey, of your report, where you are going to consider the origin and destination, final route alignment, to consider desk analysis, again to consider reconnaissance survey, and then in the last but not least is a preliminary survey. And also we collect the data. For example, what does it mean by right of way? Right of way means if your facility is dedicated means that you are not going to share it with anyone. For example, if we consider railway network is completely dedicated. It can only be used by railway, not by someone else. But if we talk about shared facility, so if we consider we can see its example. If look, we have three type of a right of way. Right of way category A, B, and C. Right of way category A is completely dedicated network, which is only designed to use by the same facility, by the same mode of transport. And then we have the second part is partially sharing its facility with other transport services. For example, if the railway is going to cross somewhere at the crossing station, cross section, etc. And then we have the third one, which is completely public, from the same transport facility could be used from the public road or from the public infrastructure. And then again, we come up with a total cost and expected return, and again that how much time frame we actually needed to complete the same project. It's a very simple calculation. If your time frame is, for example, 1 year to complete any type of a project, and in the real time you took almost 3 or 4 years, so what will happen? The cost of the same project will troubleshoot, will increase. So there is a huge possibility that you should consider your time frame very wisely. Its example is a Peshawar BRT. So for example, the original plan of a in terms of a funding donors uh, terminology was modified almost 3 to 4 times, and its original cost was increased by almost 100%. So you should consider the time frame very wisely. Any questions so far? Any question?
No, sir. No, sir.
So it's very important that you in your assignment, in your midterm report, you should consider to write about anything, and also to design or formulate your study on behalf of those assumptions, and also should consider always those 4 points. So now the question is, what are the
Sir,
different types of feasibility? J. Yeah, go ahead.
sir, can you go on previous slide? I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, normally when we are executing the preliminary survey, do we consider the people's opinion here?
Look, if you actually needed the people opinion, as I mentioned in the previous lecture as well, that you should consider the cultural norms, consider culture, rules, regulation. Of course, if you think that you are going to build a project in a very uh, like kind of a such type of area which is culturally oriented, so you cannot do, or like for example, if you are going to construct a project in Peshawar, and the project is completely on a foreign model, and you did not consider the cultural norms in terms of to meet the possible requirement, that there is a huge possibility that if you did not consider the local ground reality, effects, and figure, so the main issue in the Ashto design is that Ashto was originally designed for a United States soil condition bearing capacity. So sometime, according to my own career, I have observed that most of the project in Pakistan is maybe not working properly because of that we completely following the same model of Ashto, while we are going to ignore our own local ground conditions. So if you always ignore the ground condition in any of your project, there is a huge possibility of a failure. So of course you should consider, you should, reconnaissance survey is basically a mixture of so many things. Whenever we talk about feasibility report, you should consider each and every aspect to finally come up with your final decision. So as I mentioned in the very first session, most of the project fail because we ignore the data. The data is already there, but the person who is actually collecting the same data does not have the same mind or mindset or information, or not that much expert that he should consider all of them. Of course, you should consider. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
The next part is about the types of feasibility. Okay. Whenever we talk about feasibility study, so for example, in that specific subject, we will talk about the civil projects such as road, railway, maritime, or airport. But feasibility could be for anything. So, for example, you are going to open a shop somewhere, or like a Pizza Hut somewhere. So you should consider the flow of the people and how much the same point is connected in terms of what. So you should consider in terms of a technical feasibility. Technical feasibility means if you are going to assign a project to any company, how much technically well established they are to achieve your own goal. So that means that before assigning a feasibility project to anyone to evaluate or give you the technical feasibility, so uh, at the designer end, at the decision maker end, you should consider the company profile, that what type of resources actually they have to achieve your goal. Okay. The second part is economic feasibility. Economic feasibility is, of course, we always come up with a cost benefit analysis, but here it means is that, for example, if you give a any type of a specific project to any company which have limited resources and they cannot work on their own and they are completely dependent on the donor and the donor is having some kind of a financial crisis, so there is a huge chances, there is a huge certainty that the time frame may be prolonged, which will of course directly affect your total cost of the project. So you should consider such type of a consultant or firm who have already experience and who have already economic potential to tackle the project in the challenges time. For example, recently what's happening in Pakistan, most of the projects suffer because of the new and old setup of the different political parties. So if the old parties assign a project to someone and the project is a premier and a very important for the state, but the new setup, they have a different development strategies, so what will happen? The old people will suffer, and the same project price will go up. So who is at the end of the day suffering? The state development project is suffering along with the people. So you should consider such type of a client who have a economic kind of a self-sufficient in terms to run a project at least for some time. The third part is about operational feasibility. Operational feasibility, we actually would like to see that the firm to which you want to assign a task, do they have a good administrative or the potential of the opportunities so that they can operationalize the same uh, feasibility, the same project within due time or not. Part is about, so those were the three main types. So now we are moving towards the different type of a very short feasibility terminology such as schedule feasibility. Schedule means if they have the enough time and resources to complete the same project, and then we should see that how much they are cultural or uh, societal impact they can consider. Okay, and then you should also consider their legal and ethical feasibility, how much they are according to those mentioned parameter, and then of course resources, what type of resources actually they needed to complete any type of project. Those are also you should consider the in terms of a business terminology, because if you ignore all of those, so there is a huge possibility. But all those four mentioned feasibility are actually for the donor or for the decision maker, so that if we ignore the market potential in terms of what is the current market value, how much you can anticipate the future market potential, how much more potential of the same project have to bring more buyers to bring more customers, to bring more riders. So these are the market feasibility study. If we consider the example of a Peshawar BRT, so this is what I'm thinking. This is again my personal thinking. If the local administration did not stop the local public transport or did not discourage those old buses, wagons, etc., there is a possibility which could reduce the ridership of the Peshawar BRT as well. So you should always consider the market feasibility in terms of if you are a decision maker to. There is a very amazing theory of a German transport model which we called push, pull, and improve. So push means how you can bring the people to move away from their car, and you are going to pull them into the public transport, and then at the end you are going to improve. For example, if you want me to move, not to ride my own car within Peshawar, so you should provide me the same type of a facility which I have in my car, such as to carry my luggage, to have a comfortable ride, to have a air condition, something like that. Right? The second part is, of course, is we already mentioned about technical feasibility. So technical feasibility is, so for example, how much labor potential they have, what type of transportation facility they have. For example, if your project is located somewhere in a remote areas, and the same project needs a lot of vehicles movement, mobility, etc., something like that. So to the specific firm consultancy to whom you are going to give the responsibility to conduct a feasibility study for you, how much technically sound they are. So example is if we talk about Peshawar BRT, so McDonald's from UK they came and they did a pilot and drone study where they come up with very horrible mistakes. So there was a lot of issues in the very initial, but then with the consultancy of Peshawar Development Authority, who are actually delivering the same projects and providing the kind of a observation facility at the ground to the same construction company. So they make sure that all those points which were ignored by McDonald in the feasibility, so they have come again with the same information. And then third part is about financial feasibility or viability. So how much capacity or potential they have to move the same product, the same project to deliver it on time. And then the last one is about organizational feasibility. Organizational feasibility means that their legal and corporate structure or sector or all of them are on the same page or not. Because there is a huge issue if there is a huge gap between working between the field expert, between the administrator, between the decision maker, between the financial expert. So there is a huge chances that you may lost a lot of clients, donors, or projects. So you should see the task to whom which you are providing. Do they have all these feasibilities or not? So in a short, if we would like to conclude that what we have learned from the different components or type of a feasibility study. So if you want to make sure that your business should succeed, so you should consider such type of a people who have a dedication, who have a potential to put efforts in your product, in your project, and they have a market-based organizational, financial, and technical strategy to provide you the end result. And so this should be the kind of a conclusion of the same summary what we have learned so far from the different type of feasibility. Any questions so far?
No, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. So again, if we just would like to summarize in a very short way that what we have learned from feasibility, as I mentioned in the very first lecture, that feasibility is about that we should not assume something. We should decide on the facts and figure, and majority of the project fails due to the issue in the ongoing feasibility. So we should consider the feasibility study to analyze any type of a problem and to determine its solution with much care and with much effectivity. And the same effectivity is only possible if you know all those steps, how to reach and how to execute the same product, the same project effectively. The second part is the result which you should determine at the end of execution. The same project should receive the same type of a kind of a importance or solution. For example, if there is a somewhere a congestion issue and you come up with some type of a strategy, so and you provide the same solution to the city council, to the city administrator, and they provide or implement the same model. And at the end, if the situation is not resolved, that means that there was issue in your provide solution. So your provided solution, your solution should be a problem solver, not a problem creator. And all those activities should take place under, so when you initiate the project, so you should have all those enough expenses information, technically feasibility, and all those ability to hold the project. So if we would like to summarize the same, a feasibility study is in basically evaluation of a proposal which is designed to determine the difficulty in carrying out and how we can design the same task. Of course, there will be difficulties, there will be issues, but the problem is what type of solution you are going to provide to that to start any type of a project. So if we talk again in a very brief way, so feasibility study is a terms which from where we are going to decide about the technical development and to strengthen your abilities in terms to implement the same project. I hope now overall the summary of feasibility study is very much clear. So those are the components which we should consider while writing any type of report. So this is, I'll just put all those in a very brief way, just to give you overall the picture. Okay. So the first one is about the project name. Of course, this is very important. What type of acronym or title of the project is there, and what are the basic problem or opportunity. You should define your problem always, your objective, because if you don't know, for example, you did a feasibility study to provide the KCR, Karachi Circular Railway Network, and you don't know that what are your prime goals, your prime objective. And for example, if you hold a survey, a feasibility study for a shop, for a Pizza Hut location, and again, you don't know that what you are actually would like to find from your study, from your survey. So there is a huge possibility that you are going to miss somewhere your information. The third part is about project description. In project description, we should always consider the introduction part and all those parameters we should include that we should consider while making a decision. And again, expected benefit. So expected benefit means you should consider the prime objective after implementation of the same project and who will at the end suffer and who will get benefits from the same project. And then if there is any type of a consequences of rejection is maybe required, maybe you should reject your project, your feasibility study on the basis of all those information. Look, whenever we talk about feasibility, we never give a single option. We provide always multiple option. And if we have more than one or two or like five or multiple expert in the field, in the decision makers, then we always come up with how we can integrate all those ideas and then come up with a single model. And then you should also consider your resource requirement. Resource requirement will of course focuses mainly that how much cost for the project, for the for the project execution is needed. And then, of course, you should provide alternative. And if there is any consideration, as you already mentioned, that should we consider the public opinion? Of course, you should. So those public opinion will always comes in the same part. Okay, and then how we can look. One is planning on the paper, planning from your office, from your window. And the second part is how you can see, you can how you can make sure that the same project is practically applied, how it is